10th and final is a fascinating one. The amount of inequality in the world and in India kept rising in the 2010s, in this past decade. Just look at some of the figures. The number of billionaires as an indicator, this is global, went up from 1,011 in 2010 to 2,153, more than double the number of dollar millionaires we're talking about.
Yes.
And if we just quickly look at India, it's, of course, they're smaller because it's only one country versus the globe, but the increased percentage is about the same, more or less doubled in India. The number of, it's the age of billionaires in India too. The number of billionaires in India have gone up from 49 in 2010 up to 106, so also doubled. Now this kind of trend indicates greater inequality. Few people are making so much.
This is one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
There's so much controversy regarding the inequality data. How do you measure it?
Right.
You know, like, have you included income transfers? Have you included
Keep
all
it
sorts
simple,
of welfare?
man. Yes.
So in terms of, but this is just telling you.
Yes.
And I think that it's also more than whether inequality is rising or not, or by how much is rising. It's also the perception.
Yes.
That I think this entire perception is there about the top 0.1% of the world is sort of dominating, and they're taking a disproportionate share of the wealth. And this is what this data is
and you
showing.
say because of this, I mean, they're very, everybody's focused on these few billionaires around the world, and there's a bit of a backlash. So let's look at the backlash that Ruchir is talking about. It's building around the world. There's increasing demands for more equality in our society, financial and wealth equality. And indications, one, you're saying politicians around the world are bashing millionaires and by name.
Yeah, and we're seeing this in the US too, but it's a very funny situation that you have a billionaire entering the Democrat field but not gaining much traction. And you also, like, obviously have Trump as a billionaire, but on the other hand, this, the left wing of the Democrat Party is actually naming billionaires now in terms of, and that would not happen before. So this is
that's
big,
a very kind of indicator that they're, you know, identifying and wanting something done. And apart from that, there's pressure on them for increasing calls for new wealth tax, for free college and for healthcare.
Yeah, so I think that we're seeing a shift now much more towards redistribution. Of course, in America, they call it a shift away from Wall Street to Main Street. But I think that we're seeing this sort of thing. Now, some people can call this populism, some can call this whatever policies you want. But the pressure is clearly building that something needs to be done to redistribute some of the wealth rather than just to create it.
And then the third point that you mentioned, Ruchir, is that millennials are focused on promoting socially and environmentally sustainable investing. Millennials and Generation Z very worried about the environment, and all this backlash. They want much more billionaires and corporates to pay much more attention to social projects, right?
And something that we're seeing in the financial industry as well, which is that these funds are being launched now, which are targeted towards this. So the strongest growth we are seeing now are in funds which are, like in India they call it, CSR, or in
corporate social responsibility.
Yeah, and in the US it's also called ESG, sort of, or social impacting funds. So I think we're seeing this trend now.
People want investment in areas which have social good.
Yes, social good, or they want the companies that you're investing in to be screened for those. That how good are they on those scores, and if they're not good, how much you're engaging with them to try and bring about change.
You know, when I was traveling a lot around California and the Silicon Valley, one of the things, I felt very proud, everybody was talking about, Indians are now making great CEOs. Why? Because they have both a head and a heart. And the new trend globally is that you must not just be, whatever it takes, I'm going to win. You must also have a social message, a heart. You must look at all the aspects, other aspects of developing an organization. And Indians have a head and a heart, just like you.
Yeah, that's great to hear that.
Yeah, and Satya Nadella and Pichai, and they've proved they've got a heart, they're very sensitive, and they've done so well as a result. And that's even at smaller levels. Indians are becoming CEOs.
Right.
I won't ask you which job, which CEO you're going to be of, some social organization. definitely. Right. Okay. In terms of the next aspect of this pressure or the backlash against inequality and pure capitalism, you call it moral capitalism. The 2020s, Ruchir says, you're going to see a rise or the pressure on more moral capitalism. In capitalism with morals, the percentage actually, if you look at people who want corporates to work for social change, and this is what it looks like. The global average, 73% are saying we want not just pure profits, think about society. And in the US, it's about 74%. In India, it's 81%. Of course, we're a poor country, poverty is very visible, so you want people to affect that poverty and change. And I think a few countries that's higher than India is Mexico, that 87% want investment in social change.
And this is not just to do with absolute numbers, it's the trend that every year we're seeing that this number is going up. So, by about 8 to 10%. So the same snapshot from 5 years ago would have shown the numbers to be closer to 50, 60%.
Right.
Now it's gone to 73%.
Right.
So it's almost becoming the norm now that you have to do both. It's not one or the other.
I'm going to say something which is absolutely based on no data. When we were young, the boomers, we had a lot of social objectives, demonstrations. Then it seemed to die away with your generation. And now the Gen Z and the millennials are bringing it back a little bit. Maybe not so much the millennials, but the Gen Z, the really younger lot seem to be more involved in society and saying not just pure capitalism, based on hard data.
No, but it's backed up by this data too, that a consistent trend that we are seeing here is
because the more and more youngsters are coming in also.
That's right. So, why is this happening? The push is coming from them.
So we had a gap generation. Instead of calling you guys the whatever it was,
Gen X.
Gen X, you're the gap generation. Not the silent, the gap, and the two socially conscious generations on either side. Shocking. What you're saying is going to happen in the next 10 years is you're going to see the rise of moral capitalism. That's what you're saying. Moral capitalism, by that you mean capitalism with social conscious. Yeah. And you're seeing that happening, and that's going to increase, you feel.
Have already been sown, and now I think it's going to mushroom as things develop this decade.
Right. It's a good area to think, if you're going to invest, it's both good for society and good for returns.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that double whammy you get.
Yeah, double benefit.
Actually, a lot of, even in the Valley, any new project startups, they like to see an idea that has both a social impact and a profit impact. It's not, it used to be just profit.
And it's particularly strong in Europe. It's the strongest from there. When I travel the world, I think that in Europe you see the maximum demand that even of pension funds and other institutions, they are actually asking their investors, how much are you doing on this front?